All right. There I am. Welcome back. Happy New Year. We are back on schedule as per usual. I hope everyone has had a good week. I know this is 2 weeks back to back, but it was only because December was off schedule, so now we're on schedule. And I have some tea, and I double checked the packaging this time. So, I had a fun experience. I recently developed a food allergy, like in the past couple of years. Turns out I'm allergic to raspberries. Not like anaphylaxis level of allergic, just mildly. Enough to make me itchy all over. And since I've discovered that I have the allergy, I've only eaten raspberry accidentally twice. The first time was I thought it was a chocolate strawberry cake because I bought it around Valentine's Day, and it was a chocolate raspberry cake with strawberries on top. Uh, Still ate it, worth it. Um, and then this past weekend, when I had a really, really tasty tea, um, and the first time I had it, I was a little itchy, but I didn't know if it was that or if it was something else. And then I had it again, and it was kind of instantly. So I went and read the ingredients because I had checked, and it wasn't like in the flavor notes for it. So I'm like, okay, with tea, sometimes I need to check more than just the flavors. And sure enough, so I have an entire tin of tea that is delicious, but not drinkable. At least not by me. So I thoroughly washed my teacup and teapot, so I shouldn't have to worry about any contamination from that for tonight. So hopefully y'all haven't had that kind of excitement. And this is a book that I had planned, and then I'll be honest, I didn't read it. And so we did 12th Night last week, and I read this one, and I already have my next one lined up too, because I got one as a Christmas present that I'm really looking forward to. So with all that said, let's get into tonight. So as per usual, oh wait, I think I have something mislabeled. Oh, I can't tell. I can't tell from here. Where do I go to look at? Oh, good. Okay. All right, I feel better now. Let's get back to here. And did I actually freeze? Because I saw that briefly. No. Okay. Everything's good. As long as I don't lean too far forward, I don't lose tracking. So let's do this. As per usual, this is meant to entertain and inform. I do not hold any other rights to the works described, and I hope you enjoy. There we go. So this book is The Poison Season by Mara Rutherford. I'm going to be honest, I had to go back and correct all of my spellings in this because the font they used on the book cover I have, the R, it looks like there's another letter. So I thought it was Maria. It's Mara. So this was published by Inkyard Press. Um, it is lowercase in the book itself, which is the only reason it's lowercase here. It was published in 2022, and it is not part of a series. The author does have a duology, so she does write series, but this one appears to be a standalone. And here is the original cover. So the original cover is illustrated by Charlie Bowater, and it is super pretty. Oh, I should have included the cover I have. Oh well. I have this as like actually printed on the book, and then I have a different dust jacket. So I still have this art, which made it very simple for me to look up who the illustrator was. Again, let's talk about how thankful I am that I can find the illustrator's names sometimes. But Charlie is a concept artist and freelance illustrator. She won the Goodreads Best Young Adult Book Cover of 2017 for An Enchantment of Ravens. Most of her illustrations are people, so this is a very people heavy illustrator. A portraiture, I guess. It's closer to portraits. Alright, let's see if I get itchy in like 10 minutes. Tells me how well I cleaned my teacup. So the author is Mara Rutherford. She started out as a journalist from California, I believe, but currently lives in Rome. She's written 4 novels other than The Poison Season. One is a duology, which is... I didn't write it down, but it is in the cover. The Crown of Coral and Pearl series. So, yes. I see. I should have opened the book because the font's better. Okay. Live and learn. So, what do you need to know about The Poison Season? It has magic music. It is an uneven point of view split. I'll explain that in a second, but it is fairly self-explanatory. It is a book about expectations, and it has romance. We'll talk about that. If any of you have been here for any amount of time, you know that that is not my favorite thing, but we'll talk about it. And that's where the spoilery stuff gets in. So your main characters are Lilu, who's a diligent if squeamish daughter of the island people of Inla, an island surrounded by a poisonous lake. Also, this poisonous lake is misleading. It's more like an acid lake. But it doesn't look like acid. It looks like water. But, like, it can dissolve bone. Not a fun lake. And then your other POV character is Jaren, who is the only son in a family of 3 daughters, one of which is his twin. The family is new to the region. He is down to earth and disbelieving in magic. So, this is your main character split. 3 yeses where the romance comes in. Your first 2 don't count. So, magic music. So, the Inlands can all sing magic. If they can't sing magic by the age of 12, they're sent away from their island in a boat that doesn't dissolve like everything else that touches the lake. And this is a mostly tell, don't show power. There are a couple instances of this power being used kind of actively, but is my tracking doing weird stuff? Did I move my... Hang on. Let me see if I can fix that. Okay, there we go. But this is a mostly tell, like, they talk about having this power a lot, but we only see it used, like, twice? Maybe? And even then, one time, it does weird nonsense. So, like, I'll admit, I was super excited because this is introduced very early. And I was very excited about this power. And I was very disappointed that it didn't do much. So if you like theory crafting or fan fiction writing, you've got a nice base here. I will say right off the bat, that is my biggest complaint about this book. This book has a nice, solid base to work on for a lot of different plot points. And then things happen. I know this isn't a book review series, it's a book recommendation series. And I know that not every book is for every person. Some people won't like this book, some people will adore it. I am annoyingly on the fence. We'll talk about why as we get further on. So there is an uneven point of view. So there are two POV characters, Lilo and Jaren. And Lilo gets most of the spotlight. She's likable, so that isn't a hardship. Like, reading from her POV, not a struggle, not annoying, in my opinion. But it does mean I'm disappointed when I will randomly get one chapter of Jaren. And then it's like, and he flutters away into the ether. Just give me some chapters. He's very interesting, but I wonder... if the reason he's not POV for a lot is because he feels normal or boring compared to the Indla magic. So this is where we're going to get a little spoilery. So if you don't want any spoils, turn away. But in addition to them singing magic, there's also a magic forest on the island called the Wandering Forest. Specifically the last Wandering Forest. And it demands blood. As all good and helpful forests should. So, if you're looking at who do I care about, the characters that are dealing with their island on a poisonous lake and a blood-demanding forest and singing magic, or the guy the next town over who doesn't really believe in magic and has a bunch of sisters. Like, I understand why Lilu gets more focus, but I almost would have preferred it be... I almost would have preferred it to be like, here is 20 chapters from her perspective. Here's 5 chapters smashed together of him, and then, like, 8 more for her, or however they chose to do it. Like, it's a little frustrating that his chapters are just kind of thrown in the middle. Chronological. I know why they're where they are, because it's chronological, but... From a reading perspective, I don't know if it's better than just having a separate section that's told. Does that make sense? Like, I'm gonna make a Twilight reference here. You know how in Breaking Dawn, which unfortunately I have read and do own, there's that middle bit that is Jacob's point of view? And then it goes back to being Bella? Yeah. There's a little time overlap in that nonsense that happens. Not much, but some. Because Myers is allergic to time skips too. But you could do something similar to that with this book, where you have this little middly bit that's Jaren. and then you could go back to Lilu. But they don't. Like, I'm not saying use Twilight as your reference, especially not if you're using Breaking Dawn. But there are other books that do that better than Twilight, and I'm fine with those. Um, it's just in this case, there's a lot of loose threads. So let's move on. So this book is a book about expectations. Expectations weigh heavily on both point of view characters, but mostly it's Lilu. Maybe that's supposed to be Lilo, but I'm gonna call it Lilu because that is how it's probably supposed to be Lilo. My brain has translated it to Lilu. I'm very sorry if that's not how you meant this to be pronounced. Anyway, so she isn't considered an adult. He is. Her brother is being sent away, and she isn't supposed to feel sad about it. Conversely, Jaren has a wealth of family, not wealth, a wealth of family, despite recently losing his mother. And the general vibe of Enla and the forest is expectations and duty. While Jaren is kind of rudderless. As long as he gets home, that's kind of the expectation, is he's supposed to be the guy, so he is supposed to eventually get home, but also he's allowed to go out and do things. Not that Lilu doesn't go out and do things, but she has things that are more directly expected of her. Jaren's expectations are present, but like less pressing, let me put it that way. So yeah. Also, that first bit before the comma, she isn't considered an adult. Keep that in mind. Because welcome to my problem with this book. It's the romance! It exists, and let me explain, because I know I'm the odd man out. I have a big issue. Let's use that phrase, because it is a me problem. I am aware that it is a me problem. With books that introduce a romance plot, and to me, it feels either A, unnecessary, or B, it flattens out all the interesting bits of the plot, and then the story resolves when the romance resolves. And I have questions about other bits that were just ignored, because the romance was clearly more important. Not to me. So this book has romance. It is between the people you think it's between. And I have feelings about that. Partially because I feel it was completely unnecessary. So this is, unfortunately, this is going to be me kind of on my own little island of a soapbox. I think this book would have been better without the romance. But if you enjoy romance, it's there. I think it's done okay. I've read other books that I've liked the romance less. Oh, what was the thread one I read? There was one that was basically fantasy Regency, and that I've talked about on here, and that was one where I was like, everything was great except the romance. This kind of feels the same way, except more about this one was good, which made the romance somehow more disappointing. So the Regency one, I saw it coming from a mile away. This one, I hit the halfway mark and was literally saying out loud, please don't let this turn into a romance. It does. It does, because girl. I'm pretty sure that's the reason. So, okay. how do I explain this without making you not want to read the book? Because I do think it's an interesting read. I think a lot of things that take place in it are very interesting. For me, the romance kind of killed it. It flattened the final third, and I was left with a whole bunch of questions that I found interesting and important to the story, and none of them were answered, so I guess I was wrong. I got questions answered that I didn't need. Like, I found out about them, and I'm like, cool, I don't need to answer this. And then we answered it, and I'm like, what about these other things that I actually cared about? No, I was wrong for caring about those things. Incorrect. Such a petty little thing for me. But I know that I am not the audience for romance. I am a sucker for a good platonic friendship. So if I can get me a story with one of those, I am delighted. I have learned it's really hard to find them outside of children's books, which I think is kind of awful. Or if I do find platonic relationships, it's always between the same gender, and while I think that's important too, I don't think it's an exclusive to that, so I would like more diverse platonic friendships. So yes, I feel that the last third of the book is weak because romance. And this is, like I said, this is... I'm trying not to give all of the details away of the other part of the plot. I could care less about the romance. But, like... there's a lot of very interesting things going on. They just never get resolved. Like, including some things that are literally... whatever. I'm not going to harp on that. It is a good read. I find it well written. I find it an enjoyable read. Do I wish it was different? Yes. But it is what it is. And it's worth the read. In my opinion. I don't regret reading this book. I just wish the ending was different. Mara, write a new ending. Anyway, so on to some recommendations. So, recommendations for magic musics. You'll notice one of these is not. Hold on. I'll get there. So, Dragon Singer, which is the second book in the Harpercraft Hall trilogy by Anne McCaffrey. I think it is a superior book to Dragon Song, even though Dragon Song comes first. But I will always recommend Dragon Singer if I must pick out of the Harpercraft Hall trilogy, because I think it has the best overall story, and also it has more of my favorite characters in it. Namely the Master Harper and Pimer and... oh gosh, what is it? Is it Sybil? I think it's Sybil. I think that's his name. Anyway, point being, the Master Harper, his apprentice, and, journeyman. He's not an apprentice. His journeyman and Pimer are absolutely my favorite characters, and they're all over this book, so you read this book. Next on the list is Magic Steps by Tamora Pierce. You will notice that this is about dancing, not about music, but there's a lot of music in this one. And so this one comes with a caveat. This is the first book in the second quartet about characters in her Imelin world. And it happens to have my least favorite of her main four characters. That being said, as much as I dislike Sandraline Fatoran, I do like the boy who dances magic in this. So even if you don't like Prissy McNoble Pants, You will probably like the guy. So he's a lot of fun. Um, it's also, while his magic is the focus, you do have the fact that Sandra is a Stitch Witch and therefore is a Thread Mage, and that I find that interesting even if I don't like her, mostly because of her attitude. Um, and there's a lot of interesting kinds of magic. Next up with magical music is Sabriel by Garth Nix. Right? I haven't just made... Hang on. I did spell his name right. Okay. Fantastic. That's what I was checking, because for some reason I was suddenly doubting my ability to spell fiction, not fictional things. I know I spelled Sabriel right, but his name. So this is the first book in the Old Kingdom series. It is a series that has a semi-modern world and a fantasy world that are separated by a wall. I'm going to try to describe it without spoiling everything. It has a magic cat who's terrifying, and Sabriel she keeps the dead dead. She's a necromancer, but not for the raising of the dead, for keeping the dead where they belong, in the ground. And she does it with bells. There's a bandolier of bells. It's fascinating. There's magic in the bandolier and the cloth and the stitching and in the tone. It's really, really, really cool. I love it. Garth Nix has also written the Keys to the Kingdom series, which is a totally different world. He is an expert at crafting interesting worlds. I really like reading his worlds, and I really like... originally it was a trilogy, and I think there's a couple of other books now after the original trilogy. I am almost out of tea. Also, good news, this doesn't have raspberry in it. Which means I cleaned my cup properly. So yes, highly recommend. And then last on the list, and not least by any stretch of the imagination, is Soul Music by Terry Pratchett, which is a Discworld novel. So if you would like to get into Discworld, if you would like to fight the existential spirit of rock and roll, if you would like to meet Death's granddaughter, this is your book. I highly recommend it. So, okay. Discworld takes a bit of explaining. Discworld started off as a heavily satirical world that was both satire towards the real world and also towards fantasy tropes. And it became something a little more genuine while still holding the satire towards the real world. And it doesn't matter what nonsense the plot is getting up to, the characters are interesting. Now, I am biased. I am fond of the books that have to do with Death and his family. So, Soul Music, Mort, The Hogfather. There's another one. Reaper Man. I'm like, what's the other... although I haven't read Reaper Man, which is probably why I can't remember it. And so this is one of those where Death and his family is a primary focus. But Ankh-Morpork and the Unseen University and the ridiculous wizards show up. I don't know if the librarian is in this one. It's a lot of fun. It's one of those books that will surprise you by having some really deep quotes mixed in with some ridiculous nonsense, like the embodiment of rock and roll. Uh, but I highly recommend it. Definitely fits the magic music bill. Also, Terry Pratchett and Discworld are just wonderful. So, go read. And if you like this one, go read more. Discworld is big. So, next is the recommendation for expectations. I did not take the easy route and put Great Expectations on here because I don't enjoy that novel, and also most people have to read that for school, and I always feel like that's unfortunate. So let's do more fun stuff. So, starting off with Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief, by Rick Riordan. I've talked about this one before. I can talk about this one forever. But your demigod primary expectation is you being alive. Expectation 1, it's harder than it seems. Expectation 2 is just the nonsense that Percy gets into. Whether it is his fault or not. Number 2 on the list is The Riddle Master of Head by Patricia A. McKillop. I have covered this one before. It is the first book in a trilogy, and expectation kind of rules the day for this one. Yeah, you're following him off on a quest all over the place, and there's a time limit, and yes. Next is The Dark is Rising by Susan Cooper. This is book 2 in a sequence. I can't remember if there's 5 or 7. Oversee Anderson, The Dark is Rising, Greenwich. The one I like, and Silver on the Tree. So 5. What is the one I like? The Great King? I think The Grey King. So, problem for why I can't remember is Susan Cooper has 2 books, The Grey King and King of Shadows, and one of them is about Shakespeare, and I adore it, and the other one is part of the Darkest Rising sequence, and I get them mixed up. Curse them for having similar names. Anyway, this is book 2. This is the first book that feels like it is full of expectations, despite prophecy nonsense happening in the first book. Also, it has a completely different cast of characters in the first book, with literally one exception. And I prefer this one. Anyway, it starts off with... I think his name is Will. 7th son of a 7th son. Magic nonsense. Good stuff. Good stuff. Poems and destiny and trying not to die for a lot of it. And then the last one on this list I have a funny story about. So this is A School for Sorcery by E. Rose Sabin. I remember this book weirdly. So I remember this book because I remember reading it, and I remember the cover, and I remember kind of the epilogue. And I have been looking for it for years because I couldn't remember the name. And so, as I do every time I think of this book, I was Googling it today, desperately trying to find it. And I finally found someone who described the cover and one of the key points in it, which I'm not going to tell you because it's super spoilery. And I'm like, that one. And as soon as I pulled up the cover by name and author, I'm like, it's this one. The weird part for me is this was a standalone, I think, when I read it, and there's more. So nothing like being bamboozled because it's part of a series now. Which, if you look it up, you'll kind of understand when I read it. So it follows a girl at a boarding school in an alternate world where there is magic. I can't tell you much more than that because, like I said, what I desperately remembered was the cover, but there is a weight of expectation given at the very end of the book. I don't remember if there is much through it, so this is mostly on here so I don't lose it. But I remember deeply loving it. I loved the cover because it had her with a whole bunch of like bubbles around her. Anyway, um, I haven't read it in a long time. It is a children's book or teen technically. Um, so much like Percy Jackson, it should be a quick read. If you just want a quick read to run through, that one. The Dark is Rising, despite being a children's book, is not a quick read. It's faster than the first book because it's more interesting. Um, but yeah, so that is my recommendation of A School for Sorcery, a book that I only kind of remember by vibes and the epilogue. uh, and if I ever get my hands on it again and reread it, I will see if my vibes were correct. So hopefully, so I already have my book plan for next time, and I'm desperately hoping I haven't uh it's by an author we've done before, but I haven't actually done more than read the back of the book. It doesn't read like the back of the book doesn't read like it'll be a romance novel. To be fair, A Steeping of Blood didn't look like it was gonna have romance in it, and it had a bunch. So we'll find out. But yeah, so I hope you all have a good start to the year. Um, Happy reading, and I will see you next time.